Good evening from London, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It means we're going to be previewing tonight's edition of AEW Dynamite. And there are only a few things announced, but there's quite a few interesting talking points that we're going to be getting into, including how can AEW get their momentum back. We'll be breaking all of that down and more in the next 45 minutes. But let me introduce the panel for the day. Firstly, the co-host of the show, Clark Taylor. How are things, Clark?
I'm doing well. How are you? I'm stoked to be here. It's happy Wednesday, everybody. It's awesome. I love Dynamite. I'm excited to get into it. It's been an awesome week so far, and let's keep it rolling.
It absolutely has been a fun one, and talking about things which are fun was NXT off the air last night, because immediately following NXT, of course, Clark, Drizzy, and the man I'm about to introduce always do their NXT post-show here on the Wrestling Republic YouTube channel, so make sure to check that out after this show. But that man is Shad. How are you today, Shad?
Oh man, what a wonderful introduction, bro. I like that. I'm good, man. I'm back on the daily today. Beautiful Wednesday, ready to talk about the show that is AEW Dynamite. I get to preview it, and then I get to review it tomorrow. So hey, I'm ready for it.
Absolutely, it's going to be a fun one. But let's firstly talk about how Sting will address the fans tonight on AEW Dynamite. This has sent social media into just, conflicting, speculation and all of that. Fans debating, is Sting retiring? Well, there's no point on us speculating on that, because, we'll find out soon enough. We'll find out tonight. Of course, his last match was in Wembley Stadium, and what a way to go out is, if that is the way that he does choose to go out. But right now, let's open the show by talking about our favorite moments from the career of Sting, the legendary career of Sting. I mean, I'm just going to say it straight up. Of course, I'm only 20. I'm quite a young, I'm a young wrestling fan. Yes, I've been, watching it since I was, 7 or so. But I've only caught the latter stages of Sting's career, and of course I've gone back and watched some WCW, where we saw, the Surfer Sting and all of that, right? I've gone back and I've seen some of that, and I will continue to do so. Hint, hint, maybe something's coming up down the line about that. But I thought, Clark, you're a huge Sting fan, so I'll send it to you first. What is your favorite moment from the legendary career of the Stinger?
I'm a huge Sting fan, was definitely a little Stinger growing up. I had both plastic masks, the Crow Sting white and black paint mask and the red and black NWO Wolfpack mask. I mean, a couple moments stood out to me. The Crow era was my absolute favorite. Don't get me wrong, I loved Surfer Sting well before I owned the LJNs as a little kid, action figure wise. I was a huge Sting fan. And him partnering with Lex Luger, I loved in WCW as well. But a couple moments for me stand out. Number one being the rivalry with Hogan, the entire way that played out, and him maybe joining the NWO, not joining the NWO, standing up on behalf of WCW. Nick Patrick messed up the quick count, but it is what it is. That one is one of my faves. My absolute favorite moment from that era, though, I think for sure is during the fake Sting storyline. You had multiple fake Stings out there. At one point, you had fake Sting out there, and Buff Bagwell's cutting a promo, and Sting hits a Scorpion Death Drop and takes off the fake Sting mask and reveals that he's the real Sting. And it's just an iconic moment on I believe it was Nitro. and not Thunder. But yeah, one of my all-time favorite Sting moments, without question. I thought his work in TNA was amazing as well. I have some great memories of Sting in TNA, but the one that stands out the most, yeah, is the big reveal. That and Sting when he did the entrance. They went to I believe it was Bash at the Beach, or it was before Bash at the Beach, and they had the outdoor stadium and they had the moat, and
Yes.
the whole thing from Hogan was that Sting couldn't enter from the rafters as he had been and rappel down, and he came down from a helicopter. That's one of my favorite Sting moments of all time. It's just iconic.
Oh, I forgot all about that, but that I've seen clips of that and that was absolutely amazing. But what about you, Shard? What is your favorite moment from the career of Sting?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to copy Clark, but obviously that whole segment with within the NWO and it becoming like a meme moment itself is always reminiscent to me as a kid. So many matches, man. He had so many great matches and rivalries during his time frame in WCW. I mean, you talking about him and Luger versus the Steiner brothers.
Yeah.
You got matches with him and Flair. But for me, it's got to be the moment where he went to Impact, like TNA Impact. I thought that was a pretty crazy moment, and it really made me respect and like Sting because he always felt like he's like one of those guys. Obviously, he ended up going to WWE for a short stint, but he was one of those people that was just anti, not WWE, and it was always cool to me. And I really liked his Impact TNA run. I loved his matches that he's had with AJ Styles, and of course, the memorable, not so good match with Jeff Hardy. Um, and just a lot, man. It's a lot, and oh man, he's got Sting. Sting is one of those people that is so memorable to so many wrestling fans, just off of the different variations that he's had, the look, the face paint. He's just one of a kind, and even when we talk about AEW, like he obviously isn't a full time wrestler in a way, but he's done a lot of positive. He's been able to help out a young superstar in Darby Allen, and a person very similar in aesthetic with the face paint and the dark look, being able to get him over and help his career in many ways. And yeah, I'm excited to see what his announcement is today. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you brought up a great point there, actually, Shard, about, Sting, of course, he was originally in WCW. That's, how he became the legend he is today. But, when that got bought by WWE, like you said, he didn't want to join the WWE. He
Hmm.
wanted to go to, TNA and try and create, real competition for WWE. Obviously, it didn't end up working out. And then he just gave in. The fans wanted to see him again. He was like, you know what? I'm gonna, a few years had passed. He was like, I'm gonna go to WWE. He appeared in WWE. Obviously had that, that very short run there. Then of course, unfortunately, got injured. But then as soon as a real competition again just started rising up, and it was
Hmm.
early in AEW he joined as well. As soon as he could basically get out of his Legends deal, he made that jump. And it really does show, Sting is somebody who clearly, likes competition. He likes there to be more than one wrestling promotion. And I think that's something which is very, commendable.
I agree, and I also think part of Sting's brilliance, though, and I think it's what I think makes him so great is it doesn't come across as it's anti WWE.
Yes.
Sting has just always wanted to control his own destiny, in a sense.
Yeah.
His ability to adapt that character, right? He's always been Sting. But we talk about people like The Undertaker or Chris Jericho, who have gone by basically the same name throughout their career, but adapted to the times,
Yeah.
adjusted to what's going on around them, right? Even Triple H's evolution, right? You look at the way he throughout his career changed. Or, the Hunter Hearst Helmsley was a very different character than the Game,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Um, Sting nailed that. And at every turn had the answer, right? He was the surfer Sting with the bleach blonde hair in the early 90s and was beloved. I mean,
Hmm.
it was controversial when he first people forget. And I remember because I was young enough to be a young kid watching, but I was old enough to understand. People were concerned when he was doing the Crow Sting. It was like, why are you taking away such a great character that you have? Surfer Sting that we all love. How are we going to root for this dark version? He was spot on every time, too.
Great.
Even going to the Wolfpack and changing the face paint, which was people were critical of as well, joining a group. He stood out in that group amongst the rest because he was Sting. And then you watch, he goes to TNA, Joker Sting down the road.
Yeah.
The guy consistently adapted to what was necessary and what his surroundings, and controlled his own destiny, character driven. All his storylines meant something. There was always something personal or something between him and whoever his opponent was that felt like it mattered more than just the title. Hogan and Sting, you almost didn't need the title for. It mattered because the story was about WCW, but it felt like Hogan and Sting was a fight, not just a wrestling match. You know what I mean? It had that big fight, like old school boxing feel, right? At a pay-per-view. It was huge. And I think that kind of brilliance is hard to quantify. It's interesting because of how little time he spends in WWE, how we'll look back upon his career when it is over, whether that's the announcement tonight or not. Yeah. But I think no matter what, in my eyes, his impact on the industry is as big as any WWE legend that you could name that spent their whole career there. I think it's equal. And I'm not saying that as a knock on the WWE itself, because he did take a different road. But I think his resume speaks for itself, and it's so impressive what he was able to accomplish this many years in the business with such little time in the biggest company.
I mean, we spoke about the greatest of all time argument on Monday, and I mean, that was a name who wasn't mentioned, but like you said, he's had a big impact on the business.
He's huge.
You gotta. I don't know if you will put him in the Mount Rushmore, but he has to be in the conversation to people. Like from longevity to your point, like every character and version of him feels different from another one, and that's some of the hardest thing to do. On top of just having so many classic matches and title reigns and all that, like that's a crazy career when you think about it. Because talk about from 20 to now he's 60 plus years old. He's doing his thing, man.
100%.
Really
and it's funny because we did have that GOAT conversation, and I mentioned Michaels and the super kick, right? Imitation's the sincerest form of flattery. Look at every splash in the corner as a shout out to Sting. You look at Angelo Dawkins has one of the prettiest ones in the game right now. You know, he was a little stinger growing up. That's who he's saluting with that one. And every single time you see one of those, it's Sting from the Scorpion Death Drop to the Scorpion Deathlock, right? There's still people out there that will call the Sharpshooter the Scorpion Deathlock because they're that big a Sting fan. And that's no knock on Bret Hart. I don't look at it that way. I see that move as both.
That is fascinating. And this is definitely, a bigger discussion. Another time, once things are all wrapped up and done for him, whether that will be tonight or at a later date. But now let's go from talking about a legend to a future star in the industry. Let's talk about Kyle Fletcher, because of course his tag team partner Mark Davis recently unfortunately suffered an injury, meaning that Kyle Fletcher is currently getting a bit of a singles push in AEW. We saw him on Collision the other day get, a comfortable victory in a match which a lot of people were confused by when it was initially announced. And then after the match, he called out Kenny Omega. And the second that this was announced, I was like, oh wow, we've got a banger on our hands for Dynamite this week. I'm really looking forward to this match. And when I first saw it, I thought, okay, it's obvious Omega's winning. But Omega's kind of been on a bit of a losing streak lately, right? Maybe the Don Callis family will get involved. We know Will Ospreay's ties to them. Well, maybe, Will Ospreay is, of course, in the same faction as Kyle Fletcher. Perhaps they'll help Kyle get the victory. Maybe they really are going to give Kyle Fletcher a proper singles push. We know that Orange Cassidy is the international champion again. Maybe we're going to get Kyle Fletcher versus Orange Cassidy in the near future or something like that. I do not think this match is as clear as I originally thought it was. It could go either way, but I just think it's going to be a great wrestling bout. Clark, what's your take?
You know, I agree with a lot of what you said. Kyle Fletcher, to me, though, bell to bell, he's fascinating. But Mark Davis has always brought the character, in my eyes, to that tag team. And losing Mark Davis is tough. I would love to see a little bit more character out of Kyle Fletcher. Um, if he's going to be involved with this Callis family storyline, there's never been a better time than to sick Will Hobbs on Kenny Omega with some kind of distraction in this match and get Kyle Fletcher a win. I would be all over that. That's the only avenue I see for Fletcher winning. If they're going to put on a banger, it's got to be one winged angel, 1, 2, 3. But if you're gonna give Kyle Fletcher a singles push here, let him play the heel. He's sublime in the ring. He's with another absolute artist in Kenny Omega. On the other side, you've got the Callis family's involvement. I like that Ospreay is connected to Fletcher and connected to the Callis family. I think it's use Hobbs. I want to lean into this Hobbs Callis connection as him being the absolute destroyer for that faction. I think it just makes them look stronger. It makes them look scarier because you add how great in the ring Fletcher eventually when Davis gets back and Ospreay to the equation on top of Takeshita. Now you have something really, really, really serious in front of you, and you got worst case front line defense. You're dealing with Will Hobbs, and that's who I'd love to see be the one to interfere in this match.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Will Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs, as much as we can get him on TV, I'll be praising it. I want to see him as much as we can because he is truly excellent. And yes, so is Carl Fletcher, in my opinion. I think bell to bell, he is phenomenal. And I think this match will hopefully tonight be a banger, like I stated. But let's now talk about something which I'm very excited for on AEW tonight because Jim Ross will be sitting down with Nick Wayne and his mother for an interview. This is, of course, after Nick Wayne embraced Christian Cage as his new father figure in his life. Now, we talk about, every week on this podcast how great of a guy Christian is, right? He's truly salt of the earth, right? Father of the year, father figure of the year, Christian Cage. And yes, I honestly think in this interview, Nick Wayne's mum should acknowledge that. Not acknowledge Roman Reigns, acknowledge Christian Cage, the true father figure of all elite wrestling. Shard, your thoughts?
That's funny. I'm definitely excited for this. This is probably the thing on a paper that they announced that I am most intrigued to see on tonight's show. Uh, let's get into it in the aspect that turning Nick Wayne was one of the more underrated moves that happened at that pay-per-view for Wrestle Dream, and obviously it got overshadowed by the debut of Adam Copeland. But if you're following the story within Darby Allin, Christian Cage, we saw that this was a possibility. And I think it was the smartest move to turn him heel and to align with Christian. Nick Wayne is an incredible wrestler and he's super young, but something's missing with him in regards to character arc, and turning him heel and aligning him with Christian adds that spark to it. For the segment tonight, I want this to be like Jim Ross is Dr. Phil, and I want Nick Wayne to be like that little girl who says to catch me outside. I want it to be exactly that. I want this to be a segment of like Maury, Jerry Springer, where Nick Wayne is a horrible, deviant, disobeying teenage kid, and his mom is concerned and worrisome, and he just completely disrespects her, tells her, I'm done with you. I don't care about anything that has to be tied to the Wayne legacy. I'm creating my own route. And he says that Christian is my real father figure. Christian is my dad. He may even denounce Buddy Wayne as his father. People on the live don't get offended by that. They feel comfortable by doing this storyline, by tying it all into it. But I really want it to be like that. I just want him to go full on heel and be a horrible, disobedient young teenage boy, and just like this is how you're gonna get that Dominic Mysterio kind of heat for him. It adds a brand new element to him if you do that, because no one's gonna want to root for a dude who's disobedient to his mom. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. A little different than you. She don't gotta acknowledge Christian. She's perfectly fine for what she's doing. I want her to be the baby face in this segment, and yeah, I want Nick Wayne to be super heel.
I disagree, Shard. I think Nick Wayne's mum needs a bit of Christian in her life. And
Nice.
talking about people who need a bit of Christian Cage in their life, Anthony Manzano, come on now.
He is not a leader of horses, unless he meant it with a U, in which case he's not a cult leader either. He's just a narcissist, but he's a good one.
No, he's not. No, he is
Christian-
not. How dare you say such a... This is why we can't have good people like Christian
Cult
Cage
leader.
Clark, right?
He's not leading horses.
Oh, so
bro.
he's Peyton Manning and got you. That's what he thinks he
he's the
is.
quarterback for the Colts.
Yeah.
Right. For those of you guys who are audio only, Anthony Manzano saying that we're too much of Christian Cage fans to admit the guy is playing a cult leader.
He spelled it with an O and not a U.
I mean,
Anthony Richardson.
I think it's just
I don't
Get
know
well, buddy.
what.
Get
The
well,
only
buddy.
guy in AEW I know that has to do with horses is Hangman. So I thought he was the cult leader, if anyone.
Hangman is definitely the real cult
He's
leader.
the cult leader with an O.
That's
but I
funny.
mean, no, come on, Anthony. I think it's time you show Christian Cage respect and you embrace him as your father figure, because we all need Christian Cage in our lives. But
Sleeveless
talking-
turtlenecks are in this fall.
They certainly are. But talking about things people need in their lives, MJF needs his Dynamite diamond ring, but that will be on the line tonight. Well, the process for it being on the line will start tonight as we are getting the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royale, and this is just really obvious to me. I mean, it just screams of, Juice Robinson's gonna win it. That's the story. They're just not ignoring. Like, it's the story they've been telling for 2 weeks now between Juice Robinson and MJF. It's so obvious Juice is gonna win this battle royale, and then I don't think he's gonna beat MJF for the ring. I think MJF's gonna retain, but of course, then it will lead to Jay White versus MJF for the championship at Full Gear, which has already been announced. This thing is just so obvious. And not that that's a bad thing, but at the same time, it kind of is. But Clark, give me your thoughts on this Dynamite Dozen Battle Royale.
I mean, I don't mind a good battle royale. I hope it's fun. I agree with you on it's pretty telegraphed that Juice is gonna win and go on to face Max. More importantly, though, Max is retaining the ring. He is the ring. He's the Lord of the Ring. It's Max is the Dynamite Diamond Ring. He's made it what it is, and he needs it, and he deserves it. And I hope he uses all of the rings that he's earned over the years to cheat to beat the Juice. That's what I'm hoping for.
I mean, I hate to break it to you, but they're all the same ring, Clark. I really
You
wish
want
they'd
him to get
a new one
all
each
how many
year.
how many
No.
rings has he won this
They're all the
time?
same.
I think it's technically he keeps the same one, but I think he should have 3 or 4 rings
Four.
on.
He's won it 4 times.
4
This is-
rings.
You think this is like a
crazy.
Super Bowl where he gets a different one every year?
No, I want him to make it as such, though. I just want 4 identical rings on and 1 big punch to the Juice Robinson face.
But this is
MJF goes
crazy.
over.
We're now in the 5th year of Dynamite. That is just crazy to me.
It's
That is
wild.
like, it feels like yesterday it started.
Time
He got to
flies.
win it 5 times, so he could be the 5-time. 5-time.
5 time. 5 rings. He's got to go for 7. He's got to catch Brady.
That needs to be the joke when he does
Yeah,
it.
Max needs to catch Brady. As a Long Islander, I know he's a Jets fan. It's the one way he can get back at him. 7 Dynamite Diamond rings.
If he
Brady
gets
never did
6
that.
If he gets 6, he can call himself the Michael Jordan of AEW.
I believe that is Max's biggest goal would be to catch Brady in rings.
I mean, maybe. You're not wrong there. I
It's
mean,
crazy.
that would be funny. Although who knows? His contract is up very, very shortly, and we're getting the bidding war of 2024.
Nope.
And Triple H will be pulling out some of the money from Ari Emanuel's pockets.
Nope.
But Clark still thinks he's already signed. He's already signed on the dotted line. Maybe he
He
has,
already
but
signed.
to be fair, right?
We'll have to wait and see.
As time goes on, Clark, the odds of you being right do increase.
I
And the
know. I'm
fact
starting to
is,
look smarter and
I'm
smarter by the day.
I
you
think he's
called
staying
it.
too.
I think he's actually staying. I've said this, but I mean, whether or not he's already signed, that's the question.
I
Because
called it way early.
no, but here's the thing, right? You've had so many wild theories months and months out, like the CM Punk thing was a work, which it wasn't. And then like you've had so many of these theories, and I'm like, no, no, no. And this one I was like, no. But this one might end up being right. So I really want Ari Emanuel to pull his wallet out just so you're wrong on it.
Just so I'm wrong.
Just so you're wrong
By
on
the
it.
way, I've been right on more than you gave me credit for. I've had some ones that I've called. I mean, I called Endeavor.
You did. No, you called Endeavor, yeah.
That's
And
like
that
the
wasn't a
call of
wild
the
one. That
century.
wasn't a wild one. As soon
Wait
as
a
you
minute.
said
There
that,
was a list of 5 companies that Endeavor wasn't on the day that I called it on the show.
it's
On
true.
this very
That's
show.
true. That's true.
We had a list of 5 companies, and I said, one that might.
No, that's a good point, but I mean, like, I meant in terms of ones that you give your take, and then everyone's like, no. When you said that Endeavor take, everyone was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That's what I mean in that when you
said
have
it
one of
for-
those takes, when
Check
you're like,
stats.
oh,
Check the tape.
Check the tape, eh?
Check the tape. I said it.
Go back, watch the tape. But anyway,
I said it.
talking about watching tape, Tony Storm is making a tape tonight, and that is the latest movie, Hollywood movie, by timeless Tony Storm. This gimmick has revived her for me in AEW. I say this every single week, right? That women's division needs characters. As soon as they, give women characters, just like they've given Tony Storm timeless Tony Storm, it's just fire. It's amazing. That's what we want. That's how to make your women's division feel special. That's how Impact have done it. That's how NXT have done it. It's not rocket science, right? Characters are so important in professional wrestling. That's not breaking news. Why, on more often than not, time isn't put into creating characters in the women's division, both on the main roster in WWE and in All Elite Wrestling. Timeless Tony Storm is an exception, and an exception which is proving why it's so vital, just like Julia Hart is as well lately. But I've given Tony Storm so much praise lately about this. But Shard, I want to hear your thoughts on Timeless Tony Storm.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the dot right there because I don't even want to say she's the best women character on AEW. You could argue like just pure character arc. She may be the best character on AEW flat out. Like she does so much within the given time that she has. And to your point, it's important for AEW to have someone like Tony Storm because their women's division feels very incomplete. To complete it, you have to have a primetime player. And I think she is the one primetime player that they do have off the aspect that her gimmick is like Teflon. You can book her in so many different avenues. She can play this gimmick as a heel. She can play this gimmick as a baby face. She can play this gimmick where she keeps losing and then she goes crazier and crazier. Or she can play this gimmick to where she becomes the AEW Women's Champion again. It's a incredible, brilliant gimmick. It's entertaining. They're letting her run all the creativity that she needs to do for it. Having it played during the picture in picture and silent films, her having the interviews with RJ City, everything about it is just brilliant. And it's something that's been missing for her, in my opinion, because she was phenomenal in NXT UK. She had her short stint on the main roster and they didn't get to utilize her that much. And you can kind of tell that during her time frame there to where it is now, she seemed very lifeless in a way where the love was kind of taken away and the love came back during the initial AEW run where you put her in the stable with the Outcast and her having the title reign. It's just she's the one person out of like the women's signings, and honestly out of all the WWE signings that I think has done the most. Like her and Swerve, I think have been the best WWE NXT signings that have come to AEW. That might be a hot take. I don't know if a lot of people will agree to me, but I think those two have created a completely different life for themselves on AEW for what they were doing in WWE, and they fit way better now. And she's gonna be the champion sooner or later. Like
I
it's
agree.
inevitable. Like she's just a force to be reckoned with just off of what she's doing. Like, man, we talked about it yesterday too, Clark. Like, given how much time you have, you got to make the most of it. And obviously, they don't book a lot of women's segments. They don't book a lot of women's matches for whatever reason it may be. But you have to book her because people want to see her. So kudos to her.
Yes.
She's one of my favorite, like, just acts in wrestling at the moment.
I honestly could not disagree with that. I do agree well and truly. But now let's have a debate. Let's have a conversation, right? Because the narrative on social media at the minute is that AEW have lost their momentum. And whether that's, whether that's true or not, it depends on, the person. Because people will always, disagree. People will always hate. People will always praise. And it's always been the way, people hating AEW or loving AEW. At times it's felt like, there's no difference. But let's get onto this topic, right? Because obviously AEW ticket sales are down at the minute. That's the big point here. Their ticket sales are down every week. We're seeing these, these embarrassing pictures on social media where half the stands are empty. Their TV ratings, Dynamite is steady. That's not a point of concern. Collision is back up this week. It hit 500K this week. Still, I think slightly below where they want it to be. But if it's 500K one every, 4 weeks, that's not good enough still. That they need to get that up, right? And I think AEW's response to, how they can get their momentum back was to bring in Adam Copeland. And I mean, so far, other than social media clips, it's not really worked. I don't think he's been the draw they kind of expected. And I'm sure part of that is because he can't use the Edge name there, right? I mean, we said it before. Collision was tainted by the exit of CM Punk. There's no doubt about that, right? But what AEW, in my opinion, really, really need to do right now is do what we just spoke about. They need to really make characters matter. They need to explain to fans why they should care about characters, why they should be invested into these characters' storylines. I think they need to do less random matches, less, I mean, tonight on Dynamite, they're doing Penta versus Jay White. That will be excellent. But, like, why are they really doing it? Like, I think they need to really just get away from these random matches, random great matches, unless it's maybe Carl Fletcher and Kenny Omega makes sense because there's a bit of overlap there. But like every week, there's just often like a match when you're like, why should I care about this? There's no story to really be invested in. And I think that's one reason why it's hard for casual fans to get into. I think they're making a product which is kind of too niche right now. And I think CM Punk before was bringing in those casual fans and they were watching, his stuff and his storylines, and he'd always make it make sense. But now he's gone and he's left AEW. I think they've lost a lot of that casual fan base. And I think to get it back, you need to give people reasons to care for each bit of your product. And story is king. I've said it before and I'll say it again. But Shard, what about you? How do you think All Elite Wrestling can get their momentum back?
I mean, it's difficult to pinpoint what they need to do because I feel like they plateaued in a sense. I think a lot of the high viewership and allure to it was them during a time frame from like 2020 to like around the 2021 frame where it was fresh, new, everything was being built into it. We have a set roster, but you're also adding new people that are coming in from other promotions, from old WWE people working with Impact, working with New Japan. Everything kind of seemed fresh and new. Now we kind of know what it is. They kind of have a little bit of a bloated roster in a sense, and they kind of plateaued. I think what Tony needs to do is just make the best of his resources of what he has in his roster. And I agree to the point where I think booking just needs to be better. I feel that with a weekly television show, we want to watch stuff that kind of ties in and chains in together, right? Of course, I'm going to enjoy watching a Penta versus John Moxley match, or Orange Cassidy versus John Moxley, or of Kyle Fletcher versus Kenny Omega. In ring, it's going to be good, but there isn't a lot that's being led into it. They need to kind of find a way where they can thread stuff together, have more meaningful feuds, and find a way to put the top people in position where they can kind of lead you, and they can kind of mask stuff from people that may not be in that top position. It's being TV ready isn't always it for everyone. Some people can be incredible in-ring workers, but they may not be the sharpest on promo. Their presentation might not be the sharpest. They might not even have chemistry in the ring. Just because it's two phenomenal in-ring wrestlers, it takes time to build chemistry. You kind of have to find ways to make it seem like a TV product where I'm gonna watch Dynamite because I want to watch this happen, or I want to watch Collision because I knew that happened last week and it's gonna lead together. I think they do that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he doesn't do it at all, but I think he needs to do a little bit more to it, as well as letting feuds breathe a little bit. Like give it some time, have a little bit of a slow burn. We're seeing Edge and Christian, for instance, Adam Copeland and Christian. That's something that you gotta let it breathe, let it have a slow burn and build to it. Like one of the best storylines they ever did was the whole Adam Hangman Page fighting his way back up the ranks to get the AEW title. They kind of got to get a little bit back into that more, because they can't rely on guys debuting on a pay-per-view and stuff like that. That allure is kind of gone at this point. They have their set roster. They need to take it to the next level and kind of stick around with that in regards to viewership. And in regards to ticket sales, I always say it: book it to what your convenience is. If you go to a major city, don't book it for the biggest arena when you know you can't fill it out. There's several other arenas. Make it smaller, make the presentation of it look more filled up. Don't have all these dumb wrestling fans talking smack about it, because none of that matters. But it makes the presentation look better. You sell better. You probably save money off of that aspect. But I mean, that's kind of what I would go upon it.
Yeah, no, I think that is an excellent point. If they were to just run smaller venues, they could sell it out like quite easily, because they're still selling tickets. It's just not enough for a lot of the venues which they're going to.
Right.
But I mean, what about you, Clark? I mean, how do you think AEW can get back, the momentum they had, a year or two ago?
So I'm gonna just start by saying, like, I think this whole thing is just vehemently overblown. It's violently overblown. It's a narrative. Oh, the momentum's gone. Like, come on, you're kidding. Like, the CM Punk thing ate up so much of the media time, and we're as guilty of it as anyone. We talked about it all the time, as we should have. It was huge news, but that ate up so much stuff. There's this lull after the fact, like it's over now, and there's this weird lull, and all of a sudden now we look at AEW like they're having, trouble. I'm looking at tickets here for the November 18th Full Gear at the Kia Forum. There's very few tickets available, basically none. But there are 2 down on the floor available on Ticketmaster, which is the AEW site you would buy through directly, for $1,671.75 a pop. And those are the only floor seats available in that section. There's 3 of them left total. The rest of the section is filled at that price. So selling tickets outside of that, you basically only see scattered tickets up in the top of the Kia Forum, right across from SoFi Stadium. I'm just saying, I'm not worried about ticket sales.
Check you on that though, Clark. They've only sold 7,000 tickets currently, out of 17,000 that they could do.
I mean, I could show you the picture.
No,
right here.
that's because they're not putting them all on sale. I mean, that's the tactic which both WWE were doing for the last 5 years, where you don't put more on sale until you've sold what you've got. So then there aren't sections which are empty.
I don't even see that because of based on what's available on Ticketmaster, that doesn't seem accurate, and the number doesn't seem accurate because you can see how many tickets have sold, and you can see which sections because you can go to the other sites to
But they're
get
not all
them
on sale yet.
aftermarket. How could they not all be on sale yet?
Because that's what WWE and AEW have both been doing for the past 5 years now. They don't, apart from like the big like WrestleMania and all that, that's when it's an exception. But for the most part, they don't put a lot of sections on sale until they've sold a good amount of the other tickets. So then it'll look better on TV. Then that's when they open up the other segments. Because that stops then them having to shut segments and then move in, shut.
But I can
parts of
see
the- and then
sections
moving
with
fans.
tickets available on the non-hard camera adjacent side.
So per okay, so this is an update per WrestleTix. They've currently sold now 8,500 tickets from a capacity of 17,000. Last time they were there for an episode of Dynamite last year, they sold 14,000.
I was
So
there. It
it's-
was completely full, by the way, with the stage where it was set up. I was
Yeah,
at
so that was
Dynamite.
14. Okay, so it's
I
14,000.
mean, 14 is realistically like, I mean, there was not an empty seat in that house. You can ask Carter too. He was there as well.
Yeah.
That was as full as you could ask for. And I've been to, by the way, empty, I've been to, it was interesting. I went to Rampage at Now Arena for All Out in 21, correct? And it was full.
Yeah.
It was over half empty for 22. No doubt. I didn't go in 23, but
Yeah.
by comparison, right now Arena was full for All Out both of those years. And then I really felt like United Center was full. It felt as full as you could get it given the stage and everything, right? There's going to be block seats with a stage. There just is.
I mean, I don't know about. Well, no. They deliberately topped off seats because they couldn't sell them. That was they could have put more in the United Center.
Could they have?
Because the stage was not taking out like 12,000 seats or whatever it was.
When I went
didn't
to
feel
when I
like
went to
that.
Dynamite in June at the Capital One Arena in DC, yeah, like the complete adjacent section to like I guess that part of it was blocked off or whatnot. But a lot of the seats up top there were also empty too. It wasn't a super packed crowd, but I mean that is also a pretty big basketball arena. I'm speaking off, I guess, my
Yeah.
experience to that. You have places like
I
in
mean,
DC at the Eagle Bank Arena by the George Mason University, where WWE does a lot of house shows as well, and they could fill that one out completely. And
I
it'd
will
be
say though,
super
man, I
packed.
went to a lot of WWE house shows at the Pond in Anaheim, and that's a big arena for a it's a
house
hockey
shows.
arena now. But I'm telling you, you would see it was not very many people there. You could kind of pick a seat.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
they
I'm
almost
I'm
where
just
you
speaking
were.
off.
house
I'm
shows for that
speaking off of the
reason.
size
Yeah.
aspect of it more than the like the shows. I mean, the house show is a house show. I don't.
Yeah.
You go to
Yeah.
one, you go to.
No, I agree.
But I mean, here's the thing, though, right? The argument with the momentum. There's no way you can argue that they've not lost a lot of momentum. Their TV ratings are significantly down, and their ticket sales. I mean, again, literally last year they were in the Kia Forum, and they sold out 14,000.
See, I
Now
don't know
for
if
full
momentum
gear,
even really
they've
exists.
only sold out 8.5, right? So we know for a fact with a stage they can fit in 14,000.
Yeah, but what
and
if that's the thing about momentum is they can turn it around in 1 week. One storyline, one great house, one
They
great
haven't been.
card,
They haven't
one
been.
great whatever. They haven't yet. But that's the thing about momentum is it's a figment, right? Like
That's why I'm
momentum's a
asking,
way
though.
to
What should they
describe.
do to do it?
It's a
What should
question
that thing
about of
be?
a hypothetical.
No.
Too.
I think that they should put their heads down and keep putting on good wrestling shows and continue to build the roster, get better every week. It's a new company still, right? You're on TV. They've only been active for so many years. You have a stacked roster. Keep giving us as best content as you can and build what you have. There's not one thing you can do to turn the whole thing around, right? There's not, unless like this happens in wrestling all the time, the one great storyline, right? McMahon Austin
It's true.
changed one great storyline that has us all head over heels invested, and this is not the conversation we're having. And that would be the one answer I can give, because realistically, it's going to be a slow build back to viewership, back to, all of that. But one great storyline is the perfect distraction. That's wrestling's a distraction in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, basically, to just wrap up now as well,
Yeah.
we're ending up. I mean, that is a great point, Clark. One storyline, that's all they need to turn it around. Anthony Manzano is bringing up this point with the whole Twitter stuff with Tony Khan lately, which we got to acknowledge one thing, though. AEW's account lost followers following that.
That was weird.
It's... I
He's got
understand
to
what
be.
Tony
He's got to
Khan
be
was
smarter.
trying...
He's got to be smarter.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
do
I
that.
understand what Tony was trying to do. He was trying to be funny. I think people were taking it the wrong way rather than him. I think that was what it was. I don't think like people were trying to say he's losing the plot. I don't think that's what it was. I think he was he was trying to be funny. People didn't get the joke, and it probably wasn't worth it. But let's see how they respond on Dynamite tonight. I'm excited for it. Hopefully it should be a banger of a show. But thank you to Clark, thank you to Shad for joining me here today. They will be back tomorrow with Anthony for Throwback Thursday, where they will give the Dynamite review. Check out NXT Off the Air from last night, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Please like and subscribe. Peace. Enjoy Dynamite.
Have a good one.